resources we were putting into the work that's really needed when you have multiple platforms and multiple discovery services. I was doing it full time, and other people on the team were working on it as well, and we still weren't doing everything that we really should do. And it really just became a matter of, we don't have the resources to do this. And, you know, it's not just a matter of, you know, we have to make sure that everybody gets the data and that everybody has loaded it, and if they haven't, for some reason it hasn't been loaded, we have to go back and try to find out why, and that we should be testing all of the different instances as frequently as possible, and that it's very difficult to test the discovery services because we don't have our own library, so we can't really see it functioning in a library unless we go out to the library and look at it. All of these things were concerns, but we just really began to realize what it was taking. And we were developing then, as we are now, a series of online tutorials to help people learn the bibliography and use it effectively. And then we developed an online course. So we're saying, okay, are we going to do this in triplicate? We had already done many of the videos in triplicate, and it was taking up a lot of time, and to do the online course in triplicate and then keep it up to date and keep track of it, you know, it was just overwhelming. So then of course, you know, as we were realizing this, Barbara was the director at the time. She's just left. So she actually took it on herself to go out to several libraries and do some testing. And what we discovered was that we weren't really being discovered in discovery. The bibliography would typically turn up on the second, the third, the fourth page, if that. And how many students get past the first page when they use discovery? And if they do, they're likely the sorts of students who are motivated enough to go look up the bibliography as a standalone product. So long story short, when it came time to justify the resources that we were spending in terms of the return to the people upstairs and the budget process and so on, we just couldn't make the case.
Thanks, Mary. Greg or Barbara, do you have anything to add? Or Mara?
No, I mean, I think Mary sort of encapsulated it. I would say that, you know, the particular concern to me, especially in the period leading up to this decision, was the resources that we were providing for the online tutorials and the online course modules. One of the people responsible for producing those also has the job title of thesaurus editor. And, you know, I was the senior thesaurus editor, and I was, you know, trying to, you know, make sure that the thesaurus could serve as a resource for our users. And here, you know, one of the people who was, you know, extremely important in working on that authority, probably, you know, devoted, I don't know, maybe a quarter of her work time to these, you know, to these efforts to reach our users and instruct our users. And the response to these tools was great, so we definitely wanted to keep them up. But there was no way that we could justify having, you know, a person who already had a full-time job spend that much time, you know, working on these important tools that we were producing.
Thank you, Greg.
The only other thing that I would say is there are other enhancements that the bibliography want to make. And again, if you add a new field, you don't, it's not telling someone, hey, I'm adding new fields. It's telling 3 vendors I'm adding new fields. It's testing 3 vendors to make sure that these fields are working properly. It's incorporating these new documentation and new videos and new et cetera 3 times over, and plus the discovery services. It's not just actually 3 vendors. We were available on 4 discovery platforms, so that's 7 times. 7 times adding ISNIs, for example. So, and there's other things, there's more than just one thing that we want to do, we want to add. So while it may seem like a small issue, it's not really. And then you got to make sure that the old stuff that you've incorporated in the past continues to function properly also. And you can't get those other discovery platforms in your office. You have to go out, spend the day at other libraries trying to determine whether everything is working as expected. So it isn't insignificant. Plus indexing, plus quality assurance, plus adding additional enhancements.
Thank you, Barbara. Does anybody else have anything to say in terms of response to Barbara or the other MLA folks?
Can I ask if you all talked to other librarians about this before making this decision? I felt like I didn't hear anything until it was all done, which seemed a little unusual.
Well, it's not unusual at all because, of course, once the discussion started, we were bound by non-disclosure agreements, and so we couldn't talk about it. Obviously, we had been talking to our advisory committee and to other librarians that we encountered about their experiences with discovery and their experiences with bibliography and all of that. And we continue to do that without, saying where we seem to be headed. But, all of those discussions informed the decision. But yeah, once we got into the process, we really couldn't go out and take a straw poll and say, what does everybody think we should do?
We also talked to other database producers to get a sense from them on what they were planning to do, or reasons why they had decided not to go to other discovery service providers, or what kinds of issues they may have experienced when they did add a service provider. And most subject indexes in a similar situation to us do not work with any other discovery service provider besides EBSCO. And they hadn't really received a great deal of flack for their decision.
Well, I think Ariane asked the question that was probably on most people's minds here, the one that was going to get the ball rolling. Thanks. I understand the whole non-disclosure agreement and how you couldn't talk about it once it was underway, but I also felt that there wasn't a lot of talk or information gathering in the lead up to the decision, but maybe I didn't have my ear to the ground. Out of the 40 odd participants that are in here, anybody else have anything to chime in with?
Hi, this is Faye. I've got a question. And Faye from the University of Washington. One of the things that we haven't really been able to clear up that's an issue for us is whether or not this is working with Alma Primo. We have, we're able to select databases that will appear when the students do a general search. And because EBSCO has not traditionally played well with Ex Libris, that's one of the things. I really can't figure it out if the content is in or not. I see Elliot is here as well, and I don't know if Elliot's had any experience. I haven't really taken the time to look.
This is Naomi, and we have Alma Primo and MLA, because it's an EBSCO with us, you have to search it separately on the discovery system. So I just sent people straight to the MLA database.
Yeah, see, that to me is what is the biggest issue with this, because we've been trying to teach students to do the one-stop shopping, which is what they prefer to do, rather than sending them to a specialized resource just using Primo. So a lot of people have been teaching students that pathway.
Well, if I could just say something, this is Mary again, and you know, I'm hazarding a guess based on my background in technology, because I did work as a systems analyst for several years. I suspect that the problem is that Primo does not support the display of selected databases unless they are part of the actual discovery package. That's something that your discovery service should fix, because not every database that you are going to subscribe to, I mean, I assume most of you have ANI databases, is going to be in the discovery service. It would be better for the library if you could put other databases there that you want people to pay attention to. But I suspect that that's on discovery service to make that feature available.
The only thing that I know is that EBSCO and Ex Libris have gone round and round from the very beginning. So, and I'm not sure who is to blame about that, you know, in terms of that. I just know that that was, at least initially, the situation.
Yeah, I thought it was politics, not functionality. Sorry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard too.
I think it is, because the reality is the ability for Primo or Summon, the two ProQuest data discovery services, is still functioning until either one is Mary, is one the end of March and one the end of
October, yes, but I think the situation they're talking about is if they get, maybe I misunderstood, but I think they have Primo as their service and they have the bibliography from EBSCO. But even though the content for the bibliography is still within Primo, they want to display a link to the database.
But
and they can't do it because the database itself is from EBSCO.
Right, but the point that I'm trying to make is this this arrangement that we have with EBSCO now is not a factor in the fact that Faye cannot get the bibliography on Primo. That's the point. It's got nothing to do with this arrangement. So that, you see, that's part of the problem too.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is that
oh my goodness.
You're a Primo, you can only display databases, you can only display individual databases that are part of the package and that come from their particular vendors.
This is Brian from Washington University, and we have Primo and MLA through EBSCO. And from my understanding, it's one of the few EBSCO databases, because the data is coming directly from MLA. It does search, at least how we have it configured, it does search the bibliography. Maybe I'm missing something, but
yes, it searches. Basically, Primo receives metadata directly from the bibliography, which it loads into its content repository, and that's what's getting searched when you search the Discovery Service. When you see that result, if you're lucky enough to find it, from the bibliography in the Primo results, unless you actually open up the citation, you never go into the actual instance of MLA that you are subscribing to.
Mary, can I ask you a question from somebody in the group? Ariane wanted to know if you can confirm when MLA will leave summons.
Yeah, I will have to look that up. But well, I suppose I can do it now. Why don't I look it up now?
Thanks, Mary. Anybody else, feel free to jump on in.
Hello? Oh, I beg your pardon.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, this is Melanie Boyd from the University of Calgary in Canada, and I'm just my key interest as well was in the issue with Primo and EBSCO. I just wanted to say, as much as I share some of the concerns about MLA's decision to go with EBSCO, I also wanted to say I appreciate the challenges and difficulty that you folks from MLA expressed, and you know the tough decision that you had to make, whether or not any of us agrees or disagrees with it. It strikes me, we of course have the same problem here. We subscribe to Primo, a ProQuest product, and an inferior one from my perspective, and so we have the challenges with EBSCO as well. It just strikes me that this is another situation where libraries are at the mercy of these huge corporations, and from my understanding, from everyone I've talked with here, somebody else said, you know, they won't play nice, and it strikes me it is a political situation. So we're finding ourselves in a situation where Primo now seems to be the flavor of the month. We're all subscribing to it, and so we're dealing with it seems a fight between huge companies. And as much as we might want to try and solve the smaller issues, I don't know how we can do that without actually lobbying as strongly as libraries for this nonsense to be arrested. Because we can't, I also have to, as an English librarian, I also have to teach students to move now directly to MLA because they can't access it through a search from the main page. So I think there are numerous issues here, but there's a very, very large one that I think we ought to begin to speak to.
And I'm Elliot Stevens. I'm the English Studies librarian at the University of Washington, and I echo that the teaching of it has become very difficult. Working with students, and especially students who are doing interdisciplinary projects, who are trying to make connections across disciplines, which the discovery tool really enables, I find that now that's become much harder as we have to get out of our discovery tool in order to get into the MLA by itself.
That's a great point, Elliot. I'm just catching up on the chat here. There's a long question or a comment from Melissa. And Mary came up with an answer to Ariane's question. The end date for summon is November 4th, and for Ex Libris, March 28th. I do have a question. How long how long is this partnership currently with EBSCO? Is it a 5-year, 3-year commitment?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
How far out is this partnership with EBSCO? Is it a 5-year partnership or 3-year or something else?
I don't think contractually we can say how many years it is, but it's not 10.
Oh. Thanks. Does anybody else have any or anything to share about their experiences with MLAs? To EBSCO?
I guess my other question is, you were saying earlier that that things weren't appearing anyway in discovery services, and I wonder if you have examples of that you can share from when you were doing your research, because that was not my experience in the past. I was finding that by using our discovery system, I was very much uncovering things in the data in MLA.
Barbara, I think you were the most involved in that process. I don't know if we kept anything from that period.
In all honesty, I don't have any recent examples to share with you. I know, I saw what Melissa wrote about Primo Alma at Georgetown and the fact that they don't have access to the bibliography through discovery. Well, that's to me an example. Again, we know that the different vendors throughout the last several years have made changes in their search algorithms. I know early on, like, again, when we first went on, I spent a lot more time trying to search. Again, it related to what the library subscribes to through the vendor. I know one of them, newspapers were heavily weighted. Again, is it a full text database versus not a full text database? If it wasn't full text, then libraries also had the capacity to turn the database off. There's no consistency on what you will find in the bibliography from one library to another, even from one day to another. So
yeah, there's also the question of how different libraries can get different results depending on what their configuration is, what the settings are, and whether that's done at the library, at the consortium level. There was a NISO webinar that we listened to yesterday where there was a presenter from a publishing company who encountered a situation where a library that had subscribed to their ebooks, the House of Ebooks, as a member of a consortium, could not, the users at the library could not discover those books through the discovery service that that library was using, and it had something to do with settings that maybe were not configured correctly at either or both levels.
And we were never able to get any usage statistics from the vendors, the discovery vendors. So we couldn't determine who was getting what or not from the bibliography. I mean, how successful searches were from the bibliography. We got no information to help us determine what our success rate was. And we asked.
Well, I think if that's it, that was a great conversation or beginning anyway. But I think there are probably more people that have something to share in this group.
I will just say, this is Mary again, you know, if anybody wants to discuss this offline, they should certainly feel free to contact me. If they just call the MLA general number, they will they can get the switchboard can turn them over to me very easily, or they can send me an email.
Thank you for making yourself available.
Hello, I can type. Yes. I'll just put it in there so that anybody who wants to get in touch with me separately can do so.
Great, thank you. Everybody see it? Mary has put her email address in the chat window there.
The other question that I would have for you is, what can the MLA do now to help you support your users to do a better job in teaching them or enhancing their experience? You can send those those suggestions to Mary too.
Well,
yeah.
I was going to say.
I mean,
I'm so sorry. I was going to say that though that all the fancy stuff you're doing within the database is irrelevant when we're doing it through a massive entry point. I just did a searching EBSCO alone, and the search results were messy. How am I supposed to modify them prettily? So anything you're doing on your end doesn't help us on the big end. Just my 2 cents.
well, it would certainly be good. I mean, perhaps you could send me some examples, because those are things that I would then take up with our good friends at EBSCO, who already know that I complain a lot. Seriously, if you're running into issues, please do let us know what they are, because then we can try to address them.
Well, I'm one of the weirdos who just goes straight into MLA. I don't even try to do it through the massive thing, because I want the advanced searching capabilities. I want to have the solid subjects. I want to have all those kinds of things available for my students. And, you know, and when you do those big things, it doesn't work.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you for that, because we always love to hear that. One of the questions that I have heard from librarians a lot, or one of the concerns, it's a concern with discovery, it's even a concern with databases in general, is that they tend to erase the distinctions between individual products, individual titles, whether, you know, from the level of a particular journal or a particular book to the level of a particular database like the MLA International Bibliography. And I do hear librarians expressing concern that if students don't even realize that there are these separate publications out there that have their own purposes and their own distinct features, that they're not learning something which is very essential if they're going to be able to use electronic resources effectively as they go on through life. I know this is another one of those big questions about discovery. I guess the way I would put the question is, what is important about the research that an undergraduate student does at the university? Is it to learn some facts about Henry David Thoreau, or is it to learn how to find information effectively?
I think,
because if it's to learn some facts about Henry David Thoreau, then the discovery process is fine. But if it's to learn how to use resources effectively, then they really haven't learned anything.
I don't think it's an either or. I think they're going to need the facts and learn how to search effectively.
And I think just
right.
the concept of undergraduate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying, if that's all they know, if all they know is that you find a big box and you type something into it, then they really are not going to be very effective users of online resources. it's just a concern. I mean, I understand it's very difficult to wean people off of that.
I wanted to get a question from Laura via Jay Wendell. She asked, does EBSCO now have exclusive rights to MLA metadata, or is there a way to access it separately? And does the MLA still have rights to its own metadata?
Well, we license our metadata, so you can subscribe to it through EBSCO. That's where you can find it now, just like most other ANI databases.
But we also have the bibliography is available through ORCID, and the bibliography metadata is available for what do you call it? Through platforms like Symplectic, to assist in the loading of, what do you call it, Mary?
You're talking about institutional repositories. Yes, we make our data available to help libraries populate institutional repositories. That, of course, that's not the kind of searching that you would do if you were doing research, but we do make our data available for other purposes.
So, does the MLA still have the rights to its own metadata? Our metadata is our metadata, or
right? Yeah, it's our metadata. We license it.
This is
who hosts it for us.
Sorry, this is Brian from Washington University, and maybe didn't have enough coffee today or something, but are you saying that, and again, I came in late, so maybe this was already covered, but are you saying that MLA is only going to be available through EBSCO, even as an index? Is that what?
Yes, that's correct.
So institutions that have it through ProQuest would have to get it now through EBSCO.
Right. At some point, we're supporting the other platforms. We're supporting ProQuest and Gale through the end of 2019. So
I see.
Basically, by your next renewal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mary, what do you mean? In what sense are you supporting us fully, or just in a skeletal?
No, they will continue to get all of the data through the end of the year.
That they're entitled to on their subscription.
Okay.
When
I wasn't aware of that.
When your subscription expires, regardless of who your vendor is, and again, the expectation subscription will expire by December 31st, you will continue to have access to the bibliography. If your subscription expires on August 31st, then starting September 1, you need to subscribe through EBSCO.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Are there any more questions or comments that people have from either the MLA side or libraries?
I'm just looking at
Hi, can I ask something?
Sure.
How are you communicating with the MLA constituents? I really didn't hear, I was at the MLA convention and I didn't hear much talk about it from any faculty, and I was wondering, I'm thinking about how I'm gonna communicate with my professors leading up to that November time. If there's any communication coming from you all about this. for faculty.
I'm sorry, you were kind of breaking up there. Are you asking if we've heard anything from faculty about this, or are you asking for help communicating this to faculty?
Yeah, I'm asking if you have communicated to the members of MLA, and yeah, and help with thinking about how to do that with my faculty.
I'd certainly be willing to craft some sort of a statement that, as sort of a suggestion, perhaps even to work with. It would be great if I could work with a couple of librarians to do that. Something that would explain to them in very simple terms what this means. If you're interested in that, yeah, if there's interest in that, let me know. It wouldn't be a terrible burden to do that. It might be a good idea. Why should you have to do that work? Ariana, would you want me to draft something and send it to you, and you can send me comments?
That would be great.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, it would be a sort of sample statement, and people could tailor it as they wish.
Mary, would it be possible for you just to send it out to the entire listserv?
Do you want me to send it to the entire listserv first, or should I maybe work with Ariana, maybe even a couple of other people, and then we could send it out for a comment if you want?
Yeah, I guess that would make better sense.
Okay. Well, I'll get in touch with Ariana, and then I probably will pull in a couple of other people and see what we can put together, and then we can send it out to the list and put it on our site somewhere. Has anybody who's on the line already switched to EBSCO, or is it mostly the is it the switch to a different interface that you want to communicate in particular, or mostly just that it won't be in the discovery service?
For me, just that it's not in the discovery service. We've had EBSCO MLA for years now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have been, and our executive director, Paula Krebs, is very much behind this effort to emphasize to our membership that they should be teaching the students about the bibliography and teaching them to use the bibliography, as well as other, as other databases that are strong for the study of literature. So we're trying to work with our members in that sense, making them more aware that they have some responsibility for teaching their students the tools that are available to them. It's our online course. That's part of the reason why we have the online course, because that's very easy to put on your syllabus and as they can send. So it's sort of a really no work scenario for the faculty.
There's a question over in the sidebar from Jean. What kind of enhancements or improvements are you planning to implement now that you are focused on a specific platform?
Well, the immediate things that we're working on, Bart actually mentioned ISNI's, International Standard Name Identifiers. Did I got it right? Mm-hmm. Yes, which we are actually now in the process of adding to names in our thesaurus. Hopefully at some point in the coming year, we will be able to start making use of those, making them available in the actual database that people see. What else are we working on? There are several things. Oh, ORCID IDs. We continue to import ORCID IDs. We're getting more and more of them into the database, and those, of course, are displayed immediately. We've added affiliations, and I think what we're looking forward to is that when we can focus on a single platform with our data, that we will really be able to focus on it and test it and come up with ideas that we can perhaps work on with EBSCO, because there are a great many things about our data that are not, that are perhaps not ideally supported in any database environment at the moment. So I think there are a lot of possibilities there that we would like to explore that would really enhance the experience. And then, of course, one thing we want to do, and we need extra bandwidth to do that, it's one of the reasons why we needed more people, more indexers focusing on indexing, is that we're working on plans to start including videos in the bibliography, instructional videos, interviews with authors and things of that nature. So that, again, is something that we're working on.
And of course, we have the MLA bibliography with full text through EBSCO. And so all of our instructional resources, the tutorial videos and the course, will have to have versions that you know, work for subscribers who have the full text product as well as the standalone database product.
Yeah, the other thing that we're working on now is taking a hard look at the online course and at the tutorials that we have to try to figure out what other tutorials do we need. We're thinking of providing some of them. We already provide the introductory video in several languages, but we're wondering if, you know, we would like to move into presenting some of the others in other languages as well. And then the online course, how can we improve it? How can we expand it? What other modules might be needed, things of that nature. But we're always happy with suggestions.
What Mary and Greg haven't mentioned is the fact that we're moving to a new internal platform for our data platform. So we've been spending quite a bit of time working on this new platform to make our workflow, to make us more productive, or to make the MLA more productive. And we're basically waiting for that platform to be completed, which after about 5 years, it's finally going to happen in the spring. And at that time, we will start working on these new possibilities like the videos. There's also going to be, we've been talking for years about the ability to do data mining on the bibliography, and more metadata collection from publishers that will enable the bibliography to grow significantly. And again, if the indexers and the thesaurus staff is not going to be focused on working with a number of vendors, they can focus on their task at hand, which is indexing. The other thing is data or non-Roman characters and other data sets. We will be doing more Arabic indexing, more, we do a lot of Chinese now, more Japanese, more other languages that are not really feasible with a multitude of platforms. Because we know, for example, the Chinese doesn't work well with all the platforms we're currently on.
Thanks, Barbara. Another question from the side. Has there been any consideration about possible difficulties with recruitment of field bibliographers in the context of the monopoly?
We have not, as of now, had any anybody indicating that they would not do field bibliography work anymore because of it. In a way, it simplifies it because in the course of training, it's much easier to train a field bibliographer if there's one experience that you can work with to understand in depth, that where you can help them to see how the terms have been used in the past and how to search for them and give examples and so on, instead of having to learn how to do it in multiple platforms and be continually switching back from one to another. So it would certainly facilitate the training process and the communication process when people run into some quandaries or some questions. But the new platform will also make it a much more enjoyable process to do the indexing. So we have not gotten any, we have no reason to think that that's going to be an issue from what we've seen so far.
Okay, thank you, Mary. We're getting close to the end of the hour. Does anybody else have any more questions or feedback or comments?
I would just like to thank everybody there's a big crowd here, and I know you wouldn't be on the line if you didn't believe that the bibliography was important and that our work was important. We'll keep trying to do our best to make it available to you and make it as usable as possible. As I said in the beginning, this was not an easy decision for us. We wish we could make the bibliography available on every platform that exists, but we only have so many resources.
And please feel free to contact us if you have any kinds of questions about the content of the bibliography. And likewise, let your faculty and students know that they can contact us too. A lot of people, don't understand that there are actual human beings working on these research databases. And, in many cases, the folks here have the same scholarly backgrounds that, your faculty and students have. And so if they have any questions about search, about content, what's there, what should be there that isn't there, please email us. Let us know.
Thank you, Greg. I think going forward, at least for myself, I feel a little bit more comfortable about only having EBSCO, knowing that you guys are doing the best you can to keep things, keep lines of communication open.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for taking time out of your day to come and chat, and I know we all appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to join you.
Yes, and thanks for organizing this.
You're welcome. Are there any last minute questions? You can type it in or, okay, thank you. This session is being recorded, and I think Ellis is going to be sending you an email so that you can sign if you spoke or chatted through the Zoom chat. Again, thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Yes.